What we've got on this afternoon is two speakers to start off, which will set the scene for this afternoon's panel discussion. First of all, we'll hear from Professor Verner Moeller, who'll talk about the case of Michael Rasmussen. After that, I will read a paper from Carlos Aredes from El País newspaper in Madrid, and Carlos will then take questions. We'll then have a short afternoon tea break and come back, and I will read a statement from a rider who's participating in these World Championships, and then we'll open up the discussion amongst the panel and the audience. I think it's probably better that later, when we come back for the second session, that I sort of restate some of the ground rules that I stated yesterday, because I think today we're going to have people who weren't here yesterday and are here for a different purpose to the purpose that a lot of the participants were here yesterday. So we'll deal with that when we can. I keep going to say something and it keeps coming out of my head in the wrong language. But anyway, I'd like to introduce Professor Moeller, Professor Verner Moeller at Aarhus University. Verner coordinates a network of social scientists and others who are interested in anti-doping research. He has written countless books about sport, the ethics of sport, about anti-doping. For our purposes, possibly his most important books are the book he wrote after the Festina tour called The Doping Devil, which was translated into English and is available free to download on his website or via Amazon. And he has a book which has come out in Danish, which is will come out soon in English, about the sacrifice of Michael Rasmussen at the 2007 Tour de France. Too many Tour de France's to remember. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Professor Moeller.
Thank you, Martin. Just to set the scene, the project that I have to present today came out actually out of the blue. I was a week before the World Championship in Paris in 2008. I had a phone call from Michael Rasmussen, who wanted to offer me an opportunity to see his files. He tried to persuade some of the journalists who were very critical again toward him during the tour, to see if they could get an interest in his case, but they found it was too complicated, and not really interesting, apparently. So nobody really took the bait. Therefore, he asked me, who had done research into doping, and if I could, if I were interested in seeing his files. And I was on my way to the World Championships down there where he lives, so we decided to set up a meeting, and there I saw some of his files, and what I saw there was quite disconcerting, and that lured me into the project. So I've been working on this for 1.5 years, or it took me 1.5 years to cover the ground on this book, and I can of course not present it all here, but just a little bit of it. Before I start presenting the case, let me make it clear from the outset that I share the fundamental values anti-doping is based on: the protection of athletes' health and the protection of a level playing field. I am of the opinion that fair play is worth fighting for. This includes, in my opinion, that athletes, even if they have committed an anti-doping rule violation, should be treated evenly, fairly and humanely. I find it disheartening and contrary to the spirit of sport to see athletes treated as villains because they have broken a sporting rule. I found it crucial that those who lead the anti-doping campaign understand that they have not been recruited as crusaders, but have been appointed as officials for the sake of the athletes. The rationale for anti-doping is ideally sound. However, as the battle against doping has intensified, the initial motives, fair play and health, seems to be cast aside, which, in light of the pseudo-legal principles that the anti-doping regulations are based on, in my opinion, is a matter of great concern. I think that Dick Pound was spot on when, in his book Inside the Olympics, stated his opinion that officials must demonstrate that accountability starts at the top. Their own conduct in the management of sport must be, and like Caesar's wife, be seen to be above reproach. They have a responsibility to act fairly, impartially, and within the letter and spirit of the governing rules. Now, the Rasmussen case erupted when it was leaked to the press that he had received warnings from anti-doping authorities for whereabouts rule violations. More media received this information simultaneously, so it was clear that it was not a leak by accident. One or more people with access to confidential information apparently found it unacceptable that Michael Rasmussen took the yellow jersey, knowing that he had been issued warnings. When the press got this information, the director of the Danish Cycling Federation, Jesper Vore, came forward and stated that Michael Rasmussen actually had these warnings, and that was the reason why he had been excluded from the Danish national team. He had broken the ethical code of this. At the same time, Jesper Vore said that when we received this information about his warnings from the UCI and from Anti-Doping Denmark, then it is actually confidential information. But we have decided to break our duty of confidentiality. Well, he didn't put it that way. He said, we have decided we will not lie about this. The UCI's response to this was sound. I think these words behind me from Anne Gribber was correct and showed the real ethical approach to this. In the UCI, we're disappointed that Michael Rasmussen's case became public and find it wrong. I fully understand that it creates a feeling of inequality and a request for all warnings to be made public, but that would be unfair. We have a clear rule which says that potential doping cases shall not be public, and these warnings are at a level below that. In fact, one shall have 3 warnings before we are dealing with a potential doping case. Therefore, we shall of course not make the warnings public.